Alright guys, iPhone 6S and HTC 10 over here on the right. This is going to be a side-by-side review, an honest review of these two phones compared to each other. And let me just make a point of note here at the beginning. This is an unbiased, fanboy-free review. I use a Nexus 5X as my daily phone, as well as this iPhone 6S, and so I don't have a preference for either of these. I like good hardware, good software, and a good user experience. Some of the comments you hear here today may actually be some things that you disagree with, but in my opinion, it is honest. In my opinion, it is unbiased. In my opinion, it is fanboy free. So getting right into that, one other point of note. We'll talk about how these phones are going to be compared side by side as if they were in a bubble. And what that means is irrespective of other phones on the market. So if you're an iPhone fan and you're considering an HTC 10, or if you're an HTC fan and considering an iPhone, or one of these two phones for some reason over the other, if these are the two you have your mind set on, that's what this comparison is going to be about. I'm not going to talk about other Android phones, and I'm not going to talk about other iPhones. So just keep that in mind here for the video. We're going to jump right in to the side-by-side review, the unbiased review, the fanboy-free review of the iPhone 6S and the HTC 10. Alright, so jumping right into the design of these two phones, you can see that they're pretty similar looking. Alright, this is a 4.7-inch screen on the iPhone 6S, followed by a 5.2-inch screen on the HTC 10. Back of the phones, these are both solid aluminum unibody phones. iPhone has a much thinner profile than the HTC 10, and that's likely because of the battery here inside the HTC 10. These phones do look a lot alike, guys. They have very similar design characteristics. If you talk to the fanboys, all of them will say that Apple copied HTC with the unibody aluminum enclosure, but my rebuttal to that is that, well, Apple created the first popular slab smartphone, so maybe HTC copied that. So regardless of who copied whom and the order in which they copied, these phones look alike, and that may be good, it may not be good. It depends on kind of what you like in a phone. You know, both of these phones feel good in your hand. However, they both do have a tendency to slip out of your hand. They're both super shiny and super slippery. The HTC is probably a little bit easier to grab because it's a little bit thicker, and so for me, I kind of like the little bit of a thicker phone here on the HTC compared to the iPhone 6S. I do like the thinness of the 6S. I do think it's probably a little bit nicer design in my opinion. But again, they're very, very similar in terms of their overall look and feel and weight. Again, both smaller size phones, both fit in your hand really well. Both nice phones to hold on to. Getting into some of the other design elements of the phone, center-mounted camera here, 12 megapixels on the HTC, top corner-mounted camera on the iPhone, 12 megapixels as well. Both have dual LED flashes. We do have a laser focus module here in the HTC. That's a little bit of a gimmick if you ask me. The focus isn't necessarily any faster than the focus on the iPhone 6S. Moving over to the front, we have an optically stabilized front-facing camera on the HTC 10, which is a really nice feature to have if you ask me. If you're doing any sort of video, selfie videos or video blogging, that's going to be a nice feature to have. We have center-mounted home buttons here that act as fingerprint sensors on both of these phones. Interestingly, the HTC doesn't actually have a press in. It's just you lay your finger on and it acts as a press. It's very much like your standard capacitive buttons here, which we do have a back and a menu or a recent apps button. iPhone home button does press in, does allow you to get Siri control, if you hold the phone down. So it has a little bit more functionality on that home button than we do here on the HTC 10. Other aspects of the phone from a hardware standpoint, HTC has gone and removed its boom sound dual stereo speakers from the front to having a tweeter up front here in the top, followed by a bass, solid bass secondary speaker here at the bottom. In my opinion, that was a mistake. I think HTC is pretty notable about having that great stereo sound coming out of the front of the phone, which is nice to have. So I think that's kind of a win and a loss there, side by side compared to both of these, since Apple has the same thing going on here, but does lack the top tweeter function. Both phones do offer USB charging cables that are reversible, a lightning plug here on the iPhone, and a USB-C plug here on the HTC. It's a reversible cable. Both cables do have pros and cons. The biggest pro to this is that you can do more with USB-C. It's faster, and the reversible plug is nice. The bad part about it is we have some sort of compatibility issues with plugs. You're gonna have to buy a new plug now. Other things to talk about, nano SIM here on the iPhone, nano SIM here on the HTC, but we do have removable storage here on the HTC, which is great. You can add micro SD cards to it, and that increases the storage capacity of the phone. HTC and Android also offer adoptable storage, which allows you to actually increase the capacity of the phone, which is really great. So if you have a 32 gigabyte phone, you can actually format the SD card as adoptable storage and actually make the internal size of your phone memory bigger and have more apps, etc. It's a really nice feature to have on Android phones. Other parts of the hardware we can talk about, both phones lack any sort of waterproofing, any sort of environmental protection, no dust sealing. They both will get wet and damaged if you drop them in the water. I can't comment on any sort of bending or breaking of either of these phones. You can go and do some other side-by-side reviews for bend tests and drop tests and break tests. Other parts of the sort of design and build, the battery, I would say, is probably better in the HTC 10. Easily 2 days of use out of this guy, trumping the iPhone 6S, which gets you about an average days of use for the iPhone. So it's a little bit nicer, a little bit longer life battery there on the HTC. Now we'll get into some of the software and the speed and the camera and some other things to talk about with these two phones. Software-wise, obviously you're getting iOS here on the iPhone and Android 6.0 Marshmallow on the HTC 10. Thinking ahead in terms of updates, the iPhone is going to get updates faster than the HTC. That's because the HTC is using a skinned version of Android. Granted, it is a light skinned version. It's a very minimalist look to Android. It doesn't have the pops and blips and gimmicky stuff like Samsung. It's pretty light skinned, and I actually like that a lot. But it is still going to have a lag there in terms of its software updates from Google. Once Google issues an update, it's going to take HTC a little bit to update that within their code, whereas opposed to the iPhone is going to get the update right away. So that's something to consider. Both phones do feel smooth and fast in your hand. I would definitely give the edge to the iPhone in terms of opening apps and speed of the phone. If you look at these side-by-side tests here, we'll show you guys that I don't have anything running in the background. We'll close all the running apps here on the HTC, and we'll go ahead and launch 2 games, and we'll look at the side-by-side speed tests here, both of these. Notice that the iPhone is loading Smashy Road faster than the HTC 10, quite a bit faster actually. We're still waiting. There we go. So anyway, we've got a little bit of a speed lag there on the HTC 10. We'll go ahead and close that. And we'll open up Deer Hunter 2016 for another side-by-side speed test. And we'll see who runs the game faster. It looks like the iPhone, again, has it open faster than the HTC 10. We'll go ahead and close that. And we'll go ahead and wait on the HTC 10 again here. Still waiting. There we go. So you can see quite a bit different there in terms of the speed of both of these phones. Pretty big difference with speed of opening apps and games. So take that in consideration when you're talking about sort of side-by-side app, speed. We'll talk about the screen. Both screens are LCD. Both screens are nice and bright, nice and colorful. I give the brightness edge to the iPhone. It's a little bit brighter. Both of our phones here are at max brightness, turned all the way up. And we'll open up Google Chrome here side by side and show you guys a little bit of the brightness stuff I'm talking about. You can see the iPhone's just a hair brighter. You can see the iPhone screen is actually a hair bit whiter too. This kind of has a little bit of a pink cast to it, and you notice it a lot when you turn the phone and change the viewing angles. You can really see how pink that HTC 10 screen looks. And so for me, I prefer the iPhone screen. I like the color accuracy. I like the white balance on the iPhone screen more than I like the HTC 10. Some of the other things we'll talk about here with the sort of speed and fluidity of the OS, the phones both do feel quick. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the HTC is, substantially slower than the iPhone, but you will notice it in some capacity. Camera is another thing to talk about with these two phones. iPhone camera is going to be a little bit better than the HTC 10 camera. If you look at the DxOMark scores, DxOMark has given the HTC 10 really, really high marks for their camera quality. Unfortunately, that's in a controlled environment. When you use both of these phones in the real world, you'll notice that the iPhone camera actually produces slightly better results, in my opinion, than the HTC 10. I'm not going to say the HTC 10 has a terrible camera. It just could be improved upon, and hopefully with software updates, the HTC 10 camera will actually be improved upon. Another thing to talk about with the HTC camera is it does offer some more features than the iPhone camera, which is very nice to have. And so if you're interested in sort of things like Pro mode, HTC will allow you to do raw image capture, which is really, really cool. You can change the ISO settings, you can change the white balance settings, you can change a lot of the functions of the camera, which is a really great feature to have, and that's really, really awesome. And I do think that that's far better than what the iPhone offers in terms of the camera. Quality-wise and ease of use-wise and focusing speed-wise, I think the iPhone is better than the HTC. But again, I'm getting a little bit nitpicky there, and it's really up to the individual to kind of make their own opinion on which camera they prefer. But from an ex-professional photographer standpoint, from somebody that uses every single mobile camera that's been out there lately, for me the iPhone works a little bit better than the HTC. You can also look at my side-by-side results, which I'll do with these two cameras in another video, and make your own decision. Other things to talk about are warranty on the phone. Apple offers Apple Care, which you have to pay extra for. HTC does offer its Uh-Oh protection, which will cover for 1 year accidental drops and water damage on this phone, so you can get it sent in to HTC and get a new replacement phone out within a few days, which is really, really awesome. Apple doesn't offer anything like that. What Apple does offer is if you have a problem with the phone, you can walk into any Apple store and get your phone replaced for free if it's covered under warranty. With HTC, you have to go through the trouble of sending it in and having a replacement phone mailed to you. So a little bit difference of warranty coverage there. HTC probably offers a little bit better solution for their warranty than Apple does. I would say that other things to talk about are there is a digital audio coprocessor here in the HTC 10. Excuse me, that's not where the headphone is. It's right there. That's really nice to have if you enjoy listening to music or watching videos. That has been rated as a very, very nice feature to have. The digital audio out from this phone is very high quality. If you have a really nice pair of headphones, you might enjoy watching videos and listening to music on this phone more than you would from the iPhone. One final point to mention here before my wrap up is price. $749 plus tax for an unlocked 64 gig iPhone and $699 plus tax unlocked for an HTC 10 with 32 gigs of storage. And so a little bit different. You got 32 gig versus 64 gig, $50 more expensive for the iPhone. So it's pretty close. Both of these phones are considered flagship phones. Both of these phones demanding a premium price for unlocked handsets here in the United States in the spring of 2016. The iPhone 6S is older at this point in time. We're in May of 2016, and the iPhone's been out now for, gosh, it's probably been about 8 or 10 months, while the HTC has been just released. Both of these phones are top of the line for their respective OEMs here at this point in time. Getting into what you get for that money, HTC has a good warranty for that money. They're giving you a very, very high quality, very premium feeling device with a very good camera and a very good feature set. It is lacking some of the other things that we've seen in other phones, like waterproofing, which I said I'm not going to compare to other phones, but it's lacking certain things that you can get in other phones. And the same goes for Apple. Apple doesn't have waterproofing or anything like that. But Apple does offer the Apple ecosystem. If you use a Mac, if you use other iDevices, it will sync across devices really easily, really well. Apple also offers a host of accessories from literally thousands of accessory makers. It's going to be hard to find those accessories for the HTC, especially if you want like a speaker dock. Good luck finding a USB-C speaker dock, but there are so many Lightning speaker docks around you could, make your head spin. So you definitely have to consider the aftermarket accessories as well as what else you get. Like I said, you're getting sort of the Apple experience. You're getting the iOS ecosystem. With HTC, you're getting the HTC and Android ecosystem and Android experience, which for some people might be off-putting because it's confusing. They don't really know what they're doing. There's Android fragmentation. There's other aspects to Android that aren't as easy to use maybe as iOS. And so what I would recommend you do is to go and handle these phones individually and see which one you like using in your hand more than the other. Because on paper, they're very close. In reality, they're very close. There's very subtle differences and subtle pros and cons to each of these phones. If I had to make a choice between each of these phones, I would honestly pick the iPhone over the HTC, primarily for two different things. Number one is the camera. I think that the camera is actually substantially better for me in the iPhone than it is in the HTC 10. And number two is the resale value. The resale value of iPhones is substantially better than the resale value of HTC and, in fact, any Android phone out there right now. As a phone person, I like to upgrade my phones pretty frequently, and so it's really important for me to be able to turn around and sell this phone when I'm done with it on Craigslist or on eBay, and I can do that a lot easier, a lot faster, and for a lot more money with the iPhone than I can with the HTC 10. Again, both of these phones are great phones. They're both really, really nice in their designs and in their user interface and their user experience. I actually like using the HTC 10. It's not my favorite Android phone, but again, that's not for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Don't forget to check out everything else I have on YouTube. Rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.